Hi, this is Matt Gressick, host of Brick and Mortar, welcoming you to another episode.
Welcome to Brick and Mortar. This is Eric Eversole, where we explore education from the inside out. People who have had experience inside a school building telling us about where they are on issues that are relevant. And today, we have Becca Doring.
Super relevant episode today. Not only is Becca Eric's daughter, but Becca represents a major issue in education, and that is retention of teachers and educators.
Teachers that are moving on. We're losing the troops, man. Mm-hmm. How are we going to continue the effort without them?
So the first question we're going to ask Becca is just to tell us a little bit about yourself, your bio, and why did you choose education in the first place?
Well, hi. It's nice to be here. Thanks for having me. So professionally, I taught in the Howard County Public School System for 11 years. I've been teaching children of ages K through 12 for probably 20 years, just through nannying, tutoring. I have a lot of experience with Joy cross-stitch. That came back in the pandemic. And I feel like adults don't ask each other this enough, so I'm going to tell you my favorite animal is an orca. Like, I feel like we should just introduce ourselves.
If you were an animal, what would you be?
What is your favorite animal? Like, kids, that's how they bond on the playground. What's your favorite animal? A hippo. Well, let's be friends. So
I want to be a carpenter bee because I don't sting people, but I get to bore into wood. All right. So
what got me into teaching?
Well, what got you into teaching?
So to be fair, I grew up in a family of educators. My grandparents were educators. My parents were educators. My aunt and uncle were educators. I actually remember my dad coming to me once and asking me, "Are you sure you want to be an educator, or is that really just all you have seen?" And I do feel like it was a deliberate choice because when I was much younger, I wanted to do elementary ed. I love children and being with children. And then when I got to college, I realized that actually my passion was in secondary ed. I really wanted to teach high school English at first, and then I kind of just wound up in middle school science, and I ended up loving it. So,
STEM, love you.
I just really loved like the hands-on nature of that subject, and just kind of igniting that curiosity in kids. It was great.
Okay, so give us a perspective on your time as a teacher. You can choose any one of these. What was the most difficult or challenging moment, your funniest moment, your most rewarding moment when you're teaching? In other words, what sequence of events sticks out in your memory? Yeah, story time.
So, is it okay if I have a little bit of an agenda here?
Yeah.
Okay, because really...
Is that a rhetorical question?
The thing that really sticks out to me the most from my time teaching was something that we did in 6th grade called outdoor ed. And we would take almost the entire 6th grade class to a sleepaway camp for 2 nights, 3 days and 2 nights. It was always the most exhausting 3 days of my life. I would come back, no voice. I would sleep for like 14 hours. Like, it was so exhausting. But all of my sharpest, most poignant memories are from those days because there are kids who would never get to experience a camp like that, who don't get to get outside. You know, we were hiking and canoeing and rock climbing and learning about, Native American culture. And they just bloomed. Like, some of the most difficult kids in the classroom were like in there pulling, weeds and, non-native invasive species and like getting dirty and just like, look how big my pile of weeds is. And like, they just became these people who, you never would have expected. Like, the ones like you're like, oh man, I can't believe they're coming on the trip. And then they would shine. Yeah, so
that's awesome.
It's a little bit of an agenda because Howard County has stopped doing outdoor ed.
Nice.
Since the pandemic, and I want them to bring it back.
Well, you're not the first. We've had another teacher who actually talked about that as one of their best experience also, the outdoor ed. And we asked that teacher, you got paid overtime for all that whole weekend, right?
Nope.
Which is a problem, right?
To be fair, my last year doing it, which was 2019 before the pandemic, they did offer a $125 a night stipend if you spent the night, but not if you came and stayed longer. You had to spend the night.
I wonder how that breaks down by the hour. Exactly. well, I could do a little math, but I don't want to.
I don't want to put.
We
might have to capture that. Nope.
Right. Nope. We may reuse that again later to be sure.
Are you saying I'm going to become a meme? I'm just
maybe, possibly.
Too late.
So the topic of the day is the fact that you're a very highly successful teacher, but now you're sadly moving on in another direction.
Tell us give us a little bit of that information about you moving on, but then also.
Yeah. What motivated you to make that decision?
So it was a hard one, and if I'm being honest, I still miss teaching. Like, I still have dreams that I'm in front of a classroom of students teaching.
But you're not right now, are you?
I am not. Howard County offers what's called child rearing leave, which is where you basically just get to pause your career to take care of your kids. You don't get paid, you don't get benefits, but if you want to come back, you have to do it on a yearly basis. If you come back the next year, you will have a job of equal standing somewhere in the county. And so I decided to take advantage of that after my second kid. And I run a small photography business, so the plan was kind of for me to run the business while I was staying home, but it turns out that taking care of a child is a full-time job. Who would have thought? So I really just ended up being a stay-at-home parent, which wasn't really on my agenda either. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'll go back to teaching, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I know we use the word burnout a ton when it comes to teachers leaving the career, but what that looked like for me was basically giving every ounce of energy, patience, decision-making that I had in my body to my students all day, question after question, decision after decision, watching them melt down and trying to meet them where they were. Yeah. And then I would come home to my own family and I would have nothing left.
Bandwidth completely used up.
Correct. And I could not stand the idea that my family was going to get the worst version of me. Yeah. And so I knew I couldn't go back. I've ended up taking a part-time job that has benefits, which that is a major, I know a ton of teachers who stay in teaching just for the benefits, and I can understand why.
And how stressful is this life in comparison to your previous one? Nope.
Nope. Cannot compare.
Right.
So at my part-time job, I work full days, but it is just absolutely nothing compared. I can't even begin to stress the difference in the career.
We would all say this. Matt would say it. I would say it. You would say it. When you're teaching, you're on point.
Yes.
All the time.
All the time.
You can't.
So if, let's say, like, I had something, like my cat died one morning. I got a call from my mom.
Tough.
I went to I asked the teacher, please cover my homeroom. Went to the bathroom, cried, dried my tears with one of those crappy brown paper towels that absorb nothing, and then came back into the room and taught the rest of the day like nothing had happened.
Right.
And, there are jobs, in this job, if that happened to me, I could either say, hey, I'm just having an off day.
Oh, go home.
Yeah. Or, I just would take off that day.
And you make it up another time.
I couldn't take off. That would put all of my coworkers in the worst position. Yep. They would all be giving up their planning to cover for me. Right. I mean, teachers will do anything not to take off work.
Yes. So without impugning you too much, it's mental health, it's mental relaxation. That's one of the driving factors for you right now.
And getting really deep into it, it's a very female-dominated profession, and women have a lot of mental load on them already.
Yes. Right.
And
Fair enough.
Really, it was like mental load to mental load to mental load. My brain had no space. Like I said, this past year, I suddenly started reading again. Why is that? I love reading. I was always the person who had a book in my purse.
But you have the bandwidth now.
I have the bandwidth now to actually sit down and read a novel. And it's been years, probably 8 years since I've read a novel.
So it's becoming less and less likely that you'll go back to the classroom if you can establish this lifestyle.
Correct.
Oh, hey, Matt. It happens every time. Somebody calls us. I don't know how they know.
It's like we plan it.
Hello, caller. We're so pleased you call in. How are you today?
I'm absolutely fine on this beautiful day.
Thank you. Tell us who you are, and then after that, I presume you have a question for our guest.
Yes, I do. My name is Deepa Jaffrey, and I live in Howard County.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Stop. Wait a minute. How many Deepa Jaffreys can there be in Howard County? I had a Deepa Jaffrey who was like a tremendous help in my last campaign.
Yeah, there must be just a ton of wonderful people.
It might be her.
So Divas. Funny. I swear there was a Deepa Jaffrey in the PTA group for the school that I used to teach at.
Elms, right? Yeah. Gosh, there must be like a whole bunch of them in Howard County running around. Okay, so thanks, caller. Thanks for calling. Do you have a question for Becca?
I do. Becca, what would it take to bring you back to the classroom? what would your ideal situation
Wonderful
be?
question.
Way to dig in, Diva. Let's turn the screws a little bit on her. I love our callers.
Yeah.
They ask the best questions. I don't know.
Intelligent audience
There
right
is
here.
such an intelligent audience out there. Thank you so much. Becca, you want to talk about that a little bit?
I sure do. It's a hard question to answer. Because like I said at the beginning, I really do miss teaching. I think about it. I'm still very much in touch with my coworkers, and when they talk about some of the things going on at school, it makes my heart ping a little bit, But yet I was in this position where I would do almost anything not to go back, looking for other jobs and just finding ways to sustain this leave. And so something that I've noticed now that I'm in a position that is not in the education world is something, we talk a lot about class sizes, salaries, and all of those things are very important in education and need to be addressed. But something that I've noticed that's a little harder to identify is professionalism. The standard in my new job, the assumption is that I'm a professional. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot of remote work, and it's just assumed I will get my work done. Nobody is calling to see if I'm on my computer at 9 a.m. Nobody is, checking in to see where I am. Are you in the office today? Are you at home today? I'm not punching a time card. Like, they just assume we've hired this competent person. They will get their work done. It is the exact opposite in education. It feels like the assumption is that we will not want to get our work done. Oh, there's a half day for students. You better stay at the school.
Yeah.
You can't go home and do your work. You need to be here because we need to make sure that you're getting your work done, that you're doing what you are being paid to do. And I think some of that has to do with the public opinion of teaching, that, we're paying, our tax dollars are going to the teachers. So make sure they're earning their salaries. But we're talking about people who have entered a profession to directly help the most vulnerable people in our society, children. And we're going to assume that those people don't want to do their jobs, that they're not already sacrificing evenings and weekends and not going to their kids' field trips because they're chaperoning a field trip of their own that day. Like, these are people who are committing their lives to this profession, and we treat them like they aren't going to want to work.
Well, it's the giving tree paradox, right?
Yes.
Where
Yes.
Teachers and educators give so much of themselves that eventually you just feel like a stump.
Yes.
And
yes. And at the end of the year in the county where I worked, they would give us a sheet of paper. We had 2 days a year that the union gate fought for us to have what were called work days, where we could just do work wherever we wanted to do the work. We didn't have to check in. But at the end of the year, we had to fill out a piece of paper that accounted for those 14 hours of work. So you had to each hour say, oh, I graded papers for this hour. I did this for this hour, like whatever you did. And here's the thing. Every teacher can fill up that list 10 times over because they're grading papers at 11 o'clock at night once a week. They are chaperoning outdoor ed where they are
right.
Like, I planned outdoor ed. That used to be the easiest form for me to fill. I'm like, I spent 8 hours planning on one day, and then the next day I spent another 8 hours calling chaperones. Whatever.
It's too easy, but the point is they shouldn't be asking.
They shouldn't be asking.
Because outdoor ed got done, other things got done. Why are they making you account for things that have already been accomplished?
Yes, and so the assumption needs to be that teachers are professional, and that I don't know where that starts, because it's partially public opinion that we're basically babysitters, that we're doing all of that, just kind of hanging out with the kids all day. And really, it's these people who care so deeply and want to work, and they're just not being given
the chance. I think Diva thinks you do your job.
Yeah, and I think it's cultural too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is cultural because if you look at other countries around the world, teachers are held in high respect and esteem.
Yes.
And my background is, I was brought up in Britain, but my heritage is Pakistani. And, from day one, we raised our kids to believe that their teachers were as deserving of respect as all of their immediate family members.
Yes.
So
they're held in high esteem.
We need an attitude shift.
You are not talking back to a teacher. You are not raising your voice at a teacher. You hold them in the same regard as you do your parents.
Yes. I agree. And, other countries pay teachers more. Other countries require higher education for some of, for their, for their teachers. They're on the same level as doctors. And that makes a difference.
Right. So we have another rock star caller. Thank you, Deba, for calling in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, so the next question we're going to get to is, what is the biggest, you kind of hit on it before with the attitude.
Yeah.
And if you want to just, elaborate more on that, or if you would like to talk about something else, what is the biggest misconception about people? Because a lot of people are like, they're riding in this car of education and they're students in the back, but they've never opened up the hood and saw how the engine works.
And they've been in the backseat, right? They've been
Especially
the kid in education.
What is the misconception that might be hurting our teacher workforce, attracting people in and keeping them?
I think it's actually... Okay, so I think it comes from how people picture education. So you picture a teacher in your head, and that person is standing in front of a group of students teaching, right? Or interacting, or laughing as they call on a kid with a hand raise. But I think people don't understand how little of that we're actually doing. We are doing so much classroom management. We are doing so much paperwork, IEPs and 504s, and the meetings that come with those. We're doing, professional development meetings, team meetings, collaboration meetings. I think that is just so underestimated how much of our day. I saw this thing that said, let's say that you have a job in the corporate world and your job is to plan meetings for the next day, right? You have to make PowerPoints and plan the meetings, but the whole day you're in the meetings. So you have to then wait till your day is over to plan the meetings for the next day. And then you're in the meetings all day. So you can't plan. And that's really what it's like. You just never quite catch up because there are so many other things you're doing besides teaching. And that direct teaching, that calling on kids raising their hands and doing hands-on activities.
The television version of a teacher.
That's what we all want. We love the kids. We love connecting with them and imparting information.
Right.
And we're doing so little of that now. And then people get mad because their kids aren't coming home with the same skills or knowledge. But we don't have the time to impart that when we are spending so much of our energy in other places.
And I got to point out that Becca's my daughter. She's an incredibly positive person. For her to be in this space is really sobering.
Yes.
I mean, it really does.
I don't think I would have believed that I would be here 5 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that because you always hear the statistics that the average burnout is 3 years. And I remember being 3 years. Like, what? You can't push past, and I pushed past that and I made it. I'm not a statistic. And now here I am. I'm a statistic.
Yeah.
All right, Becca. So
let's have a little fun.
Let's try to have a little fun here. So go back to a school you taught at or a school you went to, and it had a mascot.
Okay.
What was wrong with that mascot, or how should that mascot have been adjusted? You're king for a day.
Queen for a day.
Queen for a day. So,
I'll take king.
All right.
I'll do it.
I'm going to change this school's mascot too.
Okay, so I would actually just quick shout out to my alma mater, my high school, the Comets. That was a great mascot.
Yeah.
I feel like that. I just want to say I would not change a thing, except that the female teams at that school are called the Lady Comets.
In my day, they were called the Comets.
Which I think is really cute. I think they should go back to that. It's kind of cute. Or just call them all the Comets.
Right.
That's fine. Yeah. But I actually would change the middle school I taught at, fed into 2 high schools. And one of the high schools just generally seemed to be preferred than the other. The high school that was preferred were the Lions. And the high school that had not as good of a reputation necessarily was the Lightning. And we decided to change our mascot, and we chose a lion cub because we fed into a school with the lions.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great, except that we were leaving out the school that already had not so great of a reputation necessarily.
But a similar mascot to the Comets, right? The Lightning.
The Lightning.
Right.
And to be fair, that school is wonderful. It has incredible educators at it. This is just public opinion has trouble being changed. And so I wanted to name the Lion Cub Thor, which means thunder, or put a lightning star on its head,
right.
or something like Thunder the Lion Cub, or something to just tie that school in. And nobody's fault. Teachers are overworked and there's a lot going on. The opinion just never made it to whoever made the decision. So it never happened.
That's a very thoughtful one, man. I
lightning
love that.
And the thunder.
It should have been Thunder the Lion Cub, or had a lightning bolt instead of a bear paw or lion paw. And
incorporate both schools.
That's really cool.
Honor kids who are going to both schools.
Very
exactly.
creative.
Honor both schools.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And make it
and
so that
you're not going back into the education profession. Well, damn.
Well, you know what? Times are changing. So talk to me again in a year.
Maybe.
We'll see where I am.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Becca, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, and thank you for for teaching. I mean, there's kids who are better off for having you in the classroom, and we always try to celebrate that and appreciate that.
And I'll apply all the parental pressure I can to get it. All right, this is Brick and Mortar Education from the Inside Out. Tune in a couple of weeks and we'll have another educator who's been through it and wants to talk about it.
Take care.